What's good, Adam? How we feeling today? An hour early. I'm waking up. Adam, Chris and I are waking up 7:30 in the morning, crack of dawn,
Bro,
here in sunny Las Vegas. But really excited to have this conversation, man. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Thankfully, I'm an hour ahead of you, and I get up at 6 a.m. anyway, so this is awesome for me. Excited to learn about Rootstock. It's one of the OGs, and I just, building on Bitcoin. Obviously, that's been the last 18 months of our lives with ordinals and everything happening around ordinals and all the infrastructure and new protocols and all the everything about it, right? It's just been continuous, and so excited to talk and learn about kind of early Bitcoin building it and kind of the pioneers in it. So I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah, first and foremost, before we do make our rounds, for everyone that's in the spaces, could you please retweet the spaces? It's pinned up to the top, or actually I should pin it up to the top. Also, if you are on the live stream, you can go ahead and post any questions that you have for the Rootstock team, and we'll make sure we have them answered. Or you can go ahead and write your questions in the bottom right-hand corner, hit that purple button, and we could be on with our way. And make a rounds with one of the other co-hosts, and then we'll be talking with Alexandria and Gabe. Chris, how you feeling this morning?
Yo, Jake, speak for yourself, man. I am on the East Coast, so we're sitting at 10:30 over here, brother. But doing great. Was doing a little bit of a deep dive into Rootstock, and it's pretty impressive how long they've been around. They have a super diverse community, just really kind of interesting partnerships. So yeah, I'm excited to learn more and kind of see how far they've come from those early beginnings. I mean, building on Bitcoin in 2018 was basically non-existent. So I think that they might have been actually the only ones doing so. So excited to hear about their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember using Rootstock back in, I think it was 2021 when Sovereign had just launched. And I was like, wow, DeFi on Bitcoin. This is super interesting. After using Counterparty for quite some time. And it was an interesting experience. I know that Rootstock, though, has come some way, and they have some ZK. I was researching some ZK information and things that are coming to the blockchain. But without further ado, we'll make the rounds. We'll lead off with Alexandria. How are you doing today?
Awesome. Just thankful for giving us the opportunity to speak to you guys about Rootstock and the kind of amazing work we've been doing. I'm kind of based in Zimbabwe, and I think Africa's kind of ways decentralized finance has been needed the most. We kind of been robbed with bad credit lines and just hyperinflation. So for having stable coins and access to credit that's decentralized is really helpful for us. But yeah, thank you so much. Want to speak up onto that next?
Yeah, we appreciate you as well. We host a series on the Emblem show called Building on Bitcoin, where we talk with all types of protocols and teams and founders between, it could be an L2, it could be a DApp, right? It could be a meta protocol, meta layer. There's all kinds of different things that are happening on Bitcoin. And you guys are one of the OGs that's been in Rootstock, I believe, was founded in 2018, which was when Stacks was still called Blockstack at the time. That was like 3 years before that even happened. And I think around the same time a Liquid was created. Move over to Gabriel. How are you doing today?
Hi, hello everyone. Thanks for the invitation. Very excited to be here and sharing some of the early ideas and what brought us to build DeFi on Bitcoin and Rootstock. So happy to be here.
Yeah, man. The L2 space, or quote unquote sidechain space, has really started heating up on Bitcoin over the last few years. But you guys are really, one of the OGs. I'm not sure which person to pass this off to. Maybe we'll start with Gabe. Just give us a little bit of, the 411, the details on what Rootstock is and kind of how it was implemented back in 2018, or what led to the implementation of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to let everyone know, I need to leave in 20 minutes. So happy to start and share as much as I can. And then if I'm able, I can come back, or we can follow up some other day. But just to let everyone know. For you to know, the idea of Rootstock started in 2015. So in 2018 that you mentioned was actually the genesis block of the Rootstock mainnet. It was launched on January 3rd, 2018 to commemorate and celebrate the Genesis block of Bitcoin. But actually, the project started 3 years before that, when we presented the Rootstock white paper at La BitConf in Mexico in December 2015. And then we started with the support of some early Bitcoiners, creating the first MVP, as it was a local testnet. Then we launched the testnet in 2016 and the mainnet finally in 2018. So it's been around for a very long time. And I think the easiest way to understand why we decided to build Rootstock is that if you understand where we were coming from, you need to understand that all the founders were born and raised in Argentina, with huge experience in permanent financial crises, hyperinflation, and capital controls. So the Bitcoin community in Argentina started very early in the process, because I think there's a correlation between how bad your financial system is and how quickly people understand the benefits of Bitcoin. So for all of us, it was very clear what Bitcoin could represent and how important it could be for everyone in Argentina, in Latin America in general, in Africa, of course, as well. This is I think it was a little bit overlooked at the time in central economies, because they have sound financial systems, and it was more seen as a speculative niche opportunity. For us, it was a survival tool. But when we studied Bitcoin deeper, we understood that Bitcoin was going to be a cornerstone of the financial system of the future, like a digital gold. But that was not enough in order to provide financial services to every single person in the planet. Because of scalability, because of programmability, we needed to build a financial system that could operate almost without human intervention to provide micro nano loans to every single person in the planet. And at the time, Sergio, our chief scientist, had done the analysis on how many Bitcoins Satoshi had mined at the time. He found 6 of the 10 most important vulnerabilities in the Bitcoin code. So he knew Bitcoin inside out. And he also was one of the 3 security auditors of Ethereum. So Vitalik contacted him, Sergio Lerner, to do the security audit. So he knew Bitcoin and Ethereum inside out. And it was pretty clear for us and quite frustrating to see that the ecosystem of smart contracts and Turing-complete smart contracts was being developed completely separated from Bitcoin. It was like having the most robust railways in the world and having a plastic locomotive to run on top of it. It was disconnected with the proof of work and the security of Bitcoin. So with Diego, we had a meeting, completely random, with a friend in common, with Nick Szabo in San Francisco in 2014. And Nick, I don't know if you guys know Nick, he's sure. the one that coined the concept of smart contracts. He's cited by Satoshi in the white paper. And Nick expressed us that he was very frustrated to see that Ethereum was building what he ever dreamed, but completely separated from Bitcoin. And he encouraged us, why don't you guys get together with Sergio and build Ethereum on top of Bitcoin? So this is the reason why we created it. It was not out of looking for a business model or to create a startup. We all were working on other stuff at the time, but we felt compelled to make sure that the financial system of the future that every single unbanked person in the world will use in the future was secure by the most powerful decentralized network in the world, because otherwise we would be exposing them to potential censorship, confiscations, and capital controls. And we wanted to make sure that this financial system that was being built was actually to serve the people who need it. So this is what kind of brought us build Rootstock on top of Bitcoin.
Yeah, we love that. And but tell us a little bit about, and I love the story, and just so everybody gets an idea of context. Give us some context as to the general feeling from Bitcoiners at the time about, when you were first developing this. Was there a lot of support, or did you not get much support? I mean, obviously there's been this kind of big shift over the last 18 months about building on Bitcoin again, but was there kind of just general pushback, or just general nobody cared at the time? What was the feeling?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I'm very happy and I'm excited to see all the excitement that we are seeing now on Bitcoin L2s, and people finally understanding that the whole financial system needs to be built on top of Bitcoin. But in the past, in the early days, Rootstock was kind of in an awkward position, because most Bitcoiners only care about Bitcoin L1 at the time. There were no concerns about scalability. It was just a very small number of developers who were thinking on long-term Bitcoin scalability, and many thinking in Lightning at the early ideas of Lightning. But yeah, Bitcoiners were kind of more focused on Bitcoin L1, and actually most of the technologies being developed in altcoins were used by scammers. So there was a lot of hesitancy about these other technologies that were being used to scam people and to create tokens out of nowhere. So we didn't get much appreciation by maximalists at the time, and also the other altcoins were creating their own tokens, competing with Bitcoin. And they saw everything that we were doing, given that the economic incentives of Rootstock are fully aligned with Bitcoin. They had hundreds of millions in marketing budgets to promote their alternative tokens, and we didn't have that, because we were building on Bitcoin for the Bitcoin community. We're adding technological layers to Bitcoin with Bitcoin as native currency of Rootstock. This is something that I think is important to stress out, because it's different from every single other L2 apart from Liquid, that's why we call Liquid and Rootstock sidechains, is because the native token is Bitcoin. So all the activity and the usage happening on Rootstock or Liquid directly increases the demand of Bitcoin. So yeah, we were kind of on a weird spot. We call ourselves Bitcoin mutants, because we are monetary maximalists. We believe in the importance of Bitcoin as a digital gold, but also we believe that financial innovation should happen on top of the technological stack of Bitcoin. So yeah, it was a difficult situation in the past. Now we love to see that the whole ecosystem is embracing this idea that the financial system of the future will be built on technological layers on top of Bitcoin.
Yeah, Gabe, I have here pulled up on our live stream. I'm looking at two unique features to Rootstock, and they are the PowPeg and merged mining. Could you explain these before you have to go? Because it looks like these are two kind of novel features to the Rootstock protocol.
Yes, absolutely. So what you will see in Rootstock is that we are in the core developers and also the partners that are building technology on top of Rootstock, we are Bitcoiners. So we have this Bitcoiner mindset where we try to push decentralization as much as possible. We understand that there are trade-offs. So nothing is going to be as secure and as decentralized as Bitcoin L1. But for some use cases, it is going to be prohibitively expensive and inefficient. So there are trade-offs that absolutely make sense. If you are a person in El Salvador and you want to send money to your family, then you use Lightning. If you want to create a centralized exchange, then you use Rootstock. So the PowPeg is the most decentralized bridge that we've been able to develop so far. Is the most decentralized bridge in the ecosystem, the most secure. It's not perfect. There are several ideas on how to keep on improving the decentralization of this, and BitBMX is an idea that is being discussed in the ecosystem, presented by Sergio and some other folks, which will make the POPEC even more decentralized and secure. But basically, it's a bridge because this is one of the key points on how you move Bitcoins from the base layer to the upper layers. You have a fully federated versions, like such as Liquid. Now you have, I think it's 15 companies that control the private key. Basically, they control which Bitcoins move from Bitcoin up and down to the second layer to the base layer. In the case of Rootstock, we developed the POPEG, which basically is fully decentralized when you go from Bitcoin L1 to Rootstock. That is completely decentralized and no one can stop and censor that transaction. And the key and the difficult part is when you want to send the Bitcoins from Rootstock back to Bitcoin L1, because Bitcoin has very limited programmability, so you end up in a Bitcoin multisig. The problem is the lack of programmability in Bitcoin. But given the soft forks are so difficult, and we do not want a hard fork in Bitcoin ever, because we want to make sure that everything that is built does not affect the security or the centralization of Bitcoin L1, because super important for humanity. Then we created the POPEG, where the transactions, the peg out transactions, are created by smart contracts. So the federation members cannot create a transaction. They need to follow what the smart contract is doing. And that smart contract has to prove that it's following the largest proof of work chain. So that, with Armadillo and other several security measures, it gives you almost an impossible to break bridge, where the only attack that the pegnatories can do is to unplug a hardware device from a computer. They cannot steal the funds. They can block it for a period of time, but which goes against their own economic incentives and everyone. So this is the POPEG, basically. Hope it was not too difficult to understand, but it's the most secure peg or bridge that has been developed in the whole ecosystem so far to send Bitcoins from a layer 1 to a layer 2 back and forth.
Interesting. I'm actually wondering, it was occurring to me, Udi was coming up in my mind and saying, OP-Cat. I'm wondering, just so I understand, would OP-Cat affect what you guys are building? Would it make it easier for you guys, or enhance what you're doing in any way? Or how do you view OP-Cat just as a Bitcoiner yourself? Because there's a lot of talk about that right now.
I don't know. I'm not the person to answer this question. I'm not very familiar with the case. Something that I think could be interesting related to ordinals and inscriptions is that right now, the way the POPEG works is that Satoshis that are moving up and down are fungible Satoshis. So you do not have the ability to identify one specific Satoshi that could be linked to an inscription or to an ordinal and send it to Rootstock. There is a Rootstock improvement proposal created by Sergio that would allow this. So this is something very interesting in my view, because many Bitcoiners don't like inscriptions and this metadata being embedded into the Bitcoin blockchain and bloating its space. But something interesting could be to create inscriptions in Bitcoin if the creator wants to pay a high fee, but have it minted on Bitcoin, but then moving those Satoshis to Rootstock, for instance, and to have a secondary market on a different blockchain with all that metadata and blockchain space and being spent with much lower fees. And you could have a decentralized marketplace where those inscriptions and Satoshis could be exchanged. And then if you ever want, you can send them back to the Bitcoin main chain. So that's something interesting that I think Rootstock could add value to the inscriptions ecosystem, to reduce their fees and make it more decentralized and efficient. And also, I think it would be something very interesting for even Bitcoin maximalists, because it would be taking that noise or that less important information away from the Bitcoin blockchain to a secondary layer.
Wow. Yeah, I've here pulled up the roadmap on the Rootstock website, and there is a bridge for runes. One thing I've noticed with Rootstock is the protocol was very early to this idea of cross-chain or quote unquote multi-chain. Rootstock's recently added EVM capabilities, and as well as you mentioned that there's different types of bridges that are going to these different type of outlets. What's your perspective on the evolution of cross-chain products as Rootstock's kind of one of the original cross-chain protocols?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea of cross-chain was included in the Bitcoin, in the Rootstock idea from day one. Actually, Rootstock was EVM compatible from the beginning, because the initial code from Rootstock was inspired on the Java implementation of Ethereum. So basically, we took the Ethereum virtual machine and put it on top of Bitcoin through a bridge and merge mining that I'm going to explain now in a minute. But so just to clarify, Rootstock has been EVM compatible from day one, because our idea was that we actually thought how we can build something that will make the whole ecosystem better, that everyone in the ecosystem benefits if Rootstock is successful. So we said, okay, let's use Bitcoin as native currency, so every single Bitcoiner benefits if Rootstock is successful, because that would imply a higher demand for Bitcoin and higher Bitcoin price. Let's secure it through merge mining, so it creates additional value for Bitcoin miners and increases the security budget of Bitcoin. So if you have a lot of activity in Rootstock, that would imply additional mining fees for Bitcoin miners, and that would make the Bitcoin miners happier and the whole Bitcoin layer one more secure. And finally, we said, let's make sure that we build something that could be used for the Solidity programmers as well, because there was an incredible community of builders building on EVM solutions in Solidity, and we wanted to offer them the security of Bitcoin infrastructure to also secure their solutions. We had this vision from the early days that eventually Bitcoin infrastructure was going to become a commodity, that people will ask for the most secure infrastructure at the lowest price with the highest level of decentralization, and that's what users would use. So we made it fully compatible with Ethereum, because we wanted to serve all the DeFi ecosystem and say, okay, now I'm doing it with Ethereum, then I'm going to do it with Solana, and then in the future, I want to make sure that my users can also be secured by Bitcoin infrastructure. So yeah, that's this idea of cross-chain and blockchain, cross-pollination was there from day one. And something that I forgot to mention that you asked before is about merge mining. So given that we are Bitcoiners, or we were Bitcoiners and understood the value of proof of work, it was very sad for us to think that the future of the financial system was going to be secured by proof of stake. We understood the problems of proof of stake. We see proof of stake as what has failed in our society, where those who have most of the money make the decisions. And we believe that Satoshi's most important discovery was proof of work. So we wanted to make sure that DeFi in the future and decentralized financial system was built and secured by proof of work. Sergio had a lot of experience in merge mining, something that existed at the time with some inefficiencies. And you might remember Namecoin. There was a very well-known cryptocurrency that was doing merge. There's zero loss in efficiency on the Bitcoin mining side. So this is why every time you transact on Rootstock, you have 60% of the total Bitcoin hashing power secure in that transaction. It's by far the most secure smart contract platform in the world. And every time you pay a fee in smart Bitcoins, in Bitcoins on the layer 2, 80% of those Bitcoins go to the Bitcoin miners and the mining pools securing the network. So it's fully aligned with the interest of every single one in the ecosystem.
So cool, man. And it's great hearing this. I mean, I just, to dive in it a little bit deeper. Honestly, I'm kind of sad that Bitcoiners didn't really embrace it more fully, where the market could have really pushed it in, 2018 and gained some real adoption. What do you think is the thing that would kind of really gain adoption for Rootstock now? What's kind of the killer app that you see on Rootstock that people aren't aware of right now?
Yeah, so one of my favorite applications is Money on Chain. Is this incredible decentralized stablecoin with collateral in Bitcoin. So they created a smart contract-based stablecoin where you generate tokens that have a peg to the dollar, but you don't have counterparty risk. You are exchanging those Bitcoins for dollars against a smart contract. So this is the whole vision of stablecoins that is fully aligned with Bitcoin. It's secured by Bitcoin hashing power. It has over collateral in Bitcoin. So if you use the dollar on chain, which is the stablecoin for Money on Chain, you are implicitly demanding more Bitcoins. You're increasing the demand of Bitcoin. So it has the full alignment of interest, even if you're using stable coins. So this is very exciting. And of course, Sovereign and Tropicus are great projects that were born out of the Rootstock ecosystem. But also, I'm loving the huge tsunami of DeFi platforms that were originally built on Ethereum or Solana or other platforms that are now integrating Rootstock as well. So it's beautiful to see infrastructure being built natively from Rootstock, but also Rootstock being open and available to all other projects that have been built in other blockchains and now are integrating Rootstock as well.
Yeah, as I'm exploring this, there are a ton of stablecoin projects on here, and it is really encouraging to hear that Rootstock has really leaned into the cross-chain protocols, or just the cross-chain thesis, because at Emblem Vault, we have been believing that since Emblem was founded on Counterparty in 2016. It's this idea of taking the strengths of each blockchain and then kind of combining them together kind of seems to be where the direction is going. On the other side of this, with the rise of ordinals and runes and BRC20, it seems like, and then the explosion recently of the VC funded Bitcoin L2s like Merlin, and even Stacks was heavily funded in the early days. Why do you think Rootstock tends to be skipped over, or why do you think it hasn't been given the spotlight or the attention that some of these newer protocols have seen? Even though as we have this conversation and I browse through the website, you have so many more features than all of these other protocols, and 100 or so dApps that have been built on it. Why is Rootstock not in the spotlight?
Well, it's a interesting question. First of all, when we build Rootstock, we build it for the long time, right? For the long term. We think in the role that Bitcoin will have in 20 years, and we want to make sure that Rootstock is going to be available and serving billions of users in 20 years. So we understand the importance of short-term adoption and hype, but we are more concerned into the long-term anti-fragility of the protocol. So this is something that is important to understand. Since 2015, there have been like 3 or 4 different hype waves. The ICOs, then the blockchain, the CBDCs, and now it's the L2s, right? But we, from day one, we've been building a technology that would be robust and up and running in 20, 30, 50 years. And that's why Rootstock has never had a single minute offline, and it's really, really, really robust. In the hype or short-term adoption, what I can say is that many times users are excited about speculative greed, right? So when you have a blockchain that has an alternative native token, as many L2s have, Bitcoin L2s even have, that creates a significant marketing budget. So you can try to buy a community or distribute incentives and for developers to build stuff that then are very difficult to maintain in the long term. Because when you buy a community with money, then when the money runs out, then that community is gone. We took a different path, which might be a harder path, but is sustainable in the long term, which is building technology for the most important community that exists in the crypto space, which is the Bitcoin community. Bitcoin is growing the way it's growing because the technology helps the people. And we build Rootstock to help the people in a different way with a programmable financial system on top of it. So I would say that part of the hype that other projects had in the past had to do with having their own native token and being able to do airdrops and giveaways that created a lot of noise and awareness in the short term, but will be very difficult to maintain in the long term. Building a side chain, it's a painful way. That's the same reason why Liquid has been growing steadily but slowly. Is because when you use Bitcoin as native currency, all the hype and value of your network goes to Bitcoin holders. So you depend on Bitcoin holders to appreciate and build Bitcoin sidechains because there's no other token that you are giving away to try to buy a community. We're just building value for Bitcoin and Bitcoiners.
Yeah, I mean, the Bitcoin culture has seemingly begun to change over the last year, and it's become the narrative of season 2 with the influx of developers who've migrated to runes and ordinals and BRC20 from a variety of chains. We've had builders on this show from Cardano, Solana, Stacks, Ethereum, Bitcoin SV, and many, many more. So it seems like you guys, although you took the long path, here shortly in the next few years, that will change because it's not just going to be dominant. The chain of Bitcoin is not going to be dominated by the maximalist and tribalistic culture that's existed over the last 6 or 7 years. It's going to be a heavily builder type ecosystem, which is really encouraging. But on that same note, how is Rootstock going to attract these new builders who've now gravitated to Bitcoin and encourage them to build on Rootstock?
Yeah, great. Another great question. So I think Bitcoin and Rootstock have never been needed more than today. What we are seeing in the financial system, the collapse of fiat currencies, the surveillance pressure and capital controls, even in European countries, it's incredible. So we as the people, we need a decentralized financial system. We need to have programmable financial services that cannot be censored and that cannot be blocked. So when developers understand this, and when they want to do something with their time that adds value to the world, they will find and appreciate Rootstock. I think it's incredible when you connect your professional skills with your passion and sense of purpose. And I think many of us who are building on Rootstock, we are building beyond the economic incentives or the short-term gains that it can provide. We would all be better off just building stuff on some other shitcoin or altcoin with more hype. But we are building this because we believe that the world needs this. And we have the skills and we can code a better world. So I think this is what brings the Rootstock community together. It's a very passionate community of developers and builders who are creating this stuff because they want to dream with a better world where the financial system is completely open and available to every single person in the world. So I think that's the reason why we are building it, and we need to spread awareness, and these kind of spaces are incredible, and I really appreciate you guys for giving us the time to share this, because we need every bright mind and good heart and developer to be building on Bitcoin, on Lightning, on Liquid, on Rootstock, or any other technology that can help us have a fully decentralized and open financial system for all.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
it. Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, I love that, and I think, that vibes with almost everybody who joins our spaces. But we also realize it's difficult because without awareness, for example, the stable coin, right? The world needs a stable coin that's fast, efficient, and global, right? I mean, we've had lots of guests on who have talked about, Africa and the need for people to have access to a quality stablecoin that's very inexpensive to use, and how that's kind of gone from literally people using Dogecoin to now they're on, USDT on Tron and stuff. And it's like, so much of it is not just what's the best tech, it's what people know about and what they actually can understand and use easily, right? And that just doesn't happen without awareness and without without builders building stuff that is easy to use and easy to use on my phone, right? And so much of it, even getting back to ordinals and stuff, when ordinals happened 18 months ago, the wallets on Bitcoin, I'm sorry, were clunky and garbage, right? But ordinals has made these wallets like so easy and fast and on my phone and seamless, that it's just, it makes the whole thing better. And I am hopeful that kind of all that building will kind of maybe trickle over to Rootstock, because I love the vision of it. I think everybody in this space kind of loves that decentralized vision that you're building. So really appreciate you coming on. And I know you had to run. Do we have you for a few more minutes, or do you have to get out of here?
No, I can stay 5 more minutes. And let me say something. I see there's a lot of discussion, between the maxis, where believe that the financial system of the future is at great risk, and we need to make sure that we protect and ossify Bitcoin. And then you have the more playful developers building runes and ordinals and stuff. I think there's a good point in both sides, and I think we can work together, creating a consensus there, because I definitely agree on the maximalist financial services urgencies, and I rather have Rootstock the way it is now than doing something that could affect Bitcoin as layer 1 and gold, digital gold. This is something that we should never do. We need to build on top of Bitcoin, but without weakening the store of value proposal, which is the most important thing that Bitcoin is offering to the world. But at the same time, I believe that ordinals and runes and inscriptions and basically every single DeFi applications are the proof of concepts that will become the building blocks of the financial system of the future. So maybe we call it a rune or an inscription now, and then in the future it's going to be a property title of your house or your car that will be liquid, and you're going to be able to exchange it and mortgage it very quickly. Or I don't know if you're familiar with self-sovereign identities, which are basically NFTs, where you as a user collect all the reputation with the different marketplaces that you interact with. So instead of losing all your reputation in Uber or in Airbnb or in Amazon, you would be able to collect those reputational values and then maybe mortgage them to change and get a credit for a new bicycle. You need to think that more than 50% of the population in the world do not have assets to collateralize and get a loan to improve in their lives. So the idea of self-sovereign identity containers that are basically NFTs that can be used by the owner, not by a marketplace or a third party, and to be sold, but to be used by the owner, and put it as a collateral, as a digital collateral, to get a loan that will enable them to improve in their lives and have new opportunities. That's incredible. So I think many people criticizing the early DeFi, so gamifications happening around EVM solutions, do not see how these applications in the future could very easily become, financial services that could enable programmable services to billions of users. So I think the future is going to be very interesting, and I believe that Bitcoin L2s will play a key role in that future.
Yeah, the Bitcoin L2 explosion has really been an exciting time for Emblem, which is where Adam, Chris, and I work at. We're a cross-chain tool that allows you to take any type of NFT to any type of tokenized network. So really our big breakout use case was taking counterparty assets and ordinals and Bitcoin stamps and tokenizing them on Ethereum. And we're the only cross-chain tool that can host UTXO NFTs. And so our experience from what we've seen over the last 4 years that this has been ongoing is that Bitcoin is becoming this layer of asset creation, or you could say asset issuance. And then users want to take those assets to something like a Rootstock, or to something like Solana, or to something like Base on Ethereum, on one of the Ethereum L2s, because they want a specific use case. Some people want faster, higher TPS. Some people want low gas fees. Some people want decentralization. And this is just something that we're beginning to notice. And it's becoming a lot more apparent. So I think we'll have to have, Gabe, we'll probably have to reach out to you here maybe in the next few months and talk about getting Emblem on Rootstock, since it is a little bit more sufficient for that decentralized take of what Bitcoiners prefer.
Absolutely. I'd love to. Let's do it.
Yes, sir. We'll keep. Yes, sir. Absolutely. We do have a hand or a Gabe. I know you have to go. Do you have any final words or anything you'd like to say?
No, I need to go. Thank you so much for the invitation. I invite everyone to take a look at Rootstock to help us build this, and keep on supporting everything that is being built on top of Bitcoin, because Africa and Latin America, and soon the rest of the world, we need it. So let's keep on building.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gabe. Really, really appreciate your time. And Handle, you've had your hand up. Appreciate your patience. How's it going?
Hey guys, this is Cordy. Well, my username is Cordy Jose, but I'm representing, my project Handle today.
Awesome.
Yeah. So going back to self-sovereign identity, that's what we're doing on Rootstock. Basically, going back to the original idea of Namecoin. Have you guys heard of Namecoin?
Of course, yeah, we're very familiar.
Yeah, Emblem's a big host of Namecoin collections. I think we have about 5,000 Namecoin assets in vaults.
Basically, every Namecoin assets that's sold in the last 3 years has happened through Emblem Vault. So yeah, very familiar with Namecoin assets.
Yeah, that's literally how I got my my Namecoin from Emblem, from you guys. Yeah, so just going back to that, we know that Satoshi wanted the idea of us having a name, and that attached to the Bitcoin ecosystem. So the idea of Namecoin really stood out to me years ago. And then we saw ENS came about, and then there was a project called RNS on Rootstock, which is the first product on Rootstock, which is .rsk. So we're inspired by a lot of those. And what we're doing now with Handle is that we realize that it's important for everyone to own a name. It's important to have a way to own their data, and it's important to have that all attached to that name and be used across any app. So we created Handle, and with Handle, we have something coming up in a few days, which is a token-bound account. So it's going to be the first token-bound account release on mainnet, on Rootstock, and on Bitcoin, right? So I don't know if you guys heard of ERC 6551.
Yes, that's that's a composable NFTs, correct?
Correct. And my goal, our goal at Handle is to connect everything to everything, right? And I love the idea of Rootstock, and me myself, I've been part of the Rootstock ecosystem since 2019. I've been talking about it for a while now, but it's been hard because Maxis didn't want things to happen in the ecosystem. It was just that was the hardest part, was to get Maxis involved with building around more Bitcoin products, right? So now we're here at Handle, and for us is to be able to connect all EVM NFTs, collectibles, and assets together. And Emblem Vault was really interesting because you guys did that, where you guys were able to bridge things out from Bitcoin to EVM. And I was like, damn, this would be nice on Rootstock. Like, it would be great to have Emblem Vault on Rootstock instead of like just OpenSea on ETH. So yeah, I'm excited about that. But for us, our first product is going to be a token bound, which means that you have our names, which the suffix is .Bitcoin, which is the Bitcoin emoji. It's already on Rootstock. It's already on testnet. But then our mainnet is a token bound account, which is a way to own all your NFTs across EVM chains as a wallet. So that means your handle name is a wallet that could own all NFTs across EVM. So that's our first product, and I'm really excited to get that out there and release the mainnet in a few days.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, it really sounds like kind of following in the footsteps of Emblem. It's really cool to see people building, or just, eager engineers and developers building this type of stuff. If you have a post to pin to the top, I'd love to read a little bit more about that. And also just one more question from my side. What's it like as a builder on Rootstock? You said you've been on it for about, I guess, almost 5 years at this point. Take us through the trials and tribulations and why Rootstock over maybe something like Stacks, where that was the only, and Liquid, which were the only other ones at the time.
So for me, the only winners in crypto so far have been EVM and Bitcoin, right? That's we already know for sure are here, EVM, Bitcoin. Then we have ETH as well, but ETH is what created EVM. So just the idea of something where we're not building a quicksand is important to me, right? Where we have a foundation. Because with crypto, there's so many, especially now we're seeing a lot of layer twos coming out, and we're like, how are we going to combine these together? How are we going to bridge these where people don't have to realize that they're using a certain layer? And how are we going to do something where it's not based on the value of a token, right? And what really stood out to me with Rootstock is that the gas token was Bitcoin. And that was interesting because now, if you guys didn't know, like it's about half of the Bitcoin miners that exist today are securing the Rootstock sidechain, which is a great benefit, right? So you have basically half the Bitcoin miners securing the Rootstock blockchain, the Rootstock sidechain, and that's what stood out. And then you have Rootstock Bitcoin, which is essentially a Bitcoin that's bridged out but not wrapped like WBTC, but bridged out and taken from the mainnet to Rootstock. And in a way, you have that security, but you also have that EVM, which is a win. So that means that we connect to every EVM, which is Polygon or Ethereum or Blast. So I was interested in Rootstock because of the network effect, right? That means it's a hub for everything to connect to everything. But what really got me interested is in the potential of full decentralization, as in like, even though like at first it was not, if you think about it, like it's a power peg, it's the most secure, it gets backed by proof of work. But I read the white paper in 2019. What stood out to me was the future of a fully decentralized sidechain that evolves into a drive chain. And that's what got my interest, because now that means that evolving either as a BitVM, there's a release called BitVMX on Rootstock, which is an upgrade from BitVM. If you guys ever heard of BitVM, and then there's drive chain. So we're seeing more solutions being built out that are going to create a hub of full decentralization across the Rootstock ecosystem and across Bitcoin. So I see Rootstock as the hub for a strong foundation for crypto to connect everything to everything and have things be truly decentralized in that sense. So, but it wasn't easy at all, because in the early days, people ignored Rootstock and forgot about it because there wasn't much hype. There wasn't any tokens to really hype up because it was just Bitcoin. but we've definitely gone a long way. Now we're seeing we have grants now, and then there's about 50 apps that are recently integrated into Rootstock. And myself, I'm connecting to as many apps as possible. And my goal is to be the connector with Handle, right? And to connect these apps and integrate all these apps and build something where crypto comes together as a whole. And that's going to be what wins it out, as in, hey, we're decentralized in the sense where we'll be decentralized when it comes to Drive Chain or BitVMX, but also we're able to connect all the NFTs together and all the assets together in one place. So people that are not really into crypto will just see that one tool and realize that, okay, this is cool, this is blockchain, but I'm not really thinking about it too much. And that's the goal to mass adoption.
Well, what do you think? I mean, this is my kind of view on it. And I'd love to get your view on it. My current view is like the best tech, the most decentralized tech, the securest tech certainly doesn't always win, right? And I'll just say something like a simple example might be Cardano is the best tech, right? I know it's not, but if it were, right? But that doesn't really matter because whatever, Solana has the most eyeballs and people want to trade meme coins on it, right? So how do you look at that? I feel like that's the position Rootstock is in, right? It may be the best tech, but it almost doesn't matter if people kind of don't know about it, don't care about it, and it's not easy to use. Do you know what I'm saying? So what's your kind of viewpoint on kind of where Rootstock sits now and how it could maybe, kind of push past that or actually gain some widespread adoption?
So right now, the biggest issue is just the bridging between Rootstock, right? Making it easier. And I'm seeing things happening where there's better bridges. We've integrated SideShift. I don't know if you guys heard of SideShift, but we're now able to send Bitcoin or any other. For it to win out, it has to be a hub, right? Where you're not really thinking about Rootstock. And then that's what is a problem where if you always think about Rootstock all the time, hey, that's not going to win the war. The thing is making it something where it's the good tech, but this tech is used in a way where it connects to everything. And for us, like we'll have Rootstock, we'll be using Rootstock, but we're basically building the shovel, as in like, okay, we have a way to connect to Rootstock, and we have a way to build around Rootstock, but we're here to help Rootstock and create that bridge, as in, okay, so now we have SideShift. It's $5 to bridge your Bitcoin to Rootstock now, or your Solana to Rootstock now, or this to that. But so what's going to happen is we need to connect it all so people realize that, hey, this works, but you don't have to think about it too much.
And interesting. Yeah. I think between Emblem and Handle, we share the same exact vision here. It's good. Everything at the end of the day, when it comes to interoperability, it just has to be more simple. Got to get the clicks down, got to get the TPS down, got to get the speed down, got to get the fees down, all in time. But interoperability,
really, yeah.
Interoperability is really kind of last to the space, right? When it comes to, you think about like the evolution of crypto, you start with like Bitcoin. So now you have assets, then you got smart contracts, which are kind of like legal systems. Then you got fungible tokens and NFTs. And late to the game, interoperability came to the space kind of around 2018-ish, right? Emblem came around 2020 to mainnet, and you saw bridges, vaults, and wrapped assets. And so we're really like this space that we're in right now in terms of connectivity and interoperability is literally in the beginning still, right? The first 4 or 5 years, really. Alexander, appreciate you for waiting. What's your take on everything that we've discussed so far?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, just before I even say this, firstly, I just want to kind of invite Manu. He's one of the co-founders of Money on Chain. Gabriel highlighted that before, that one of his favorite projects was Dollar on Chain, the Bitcoin-backed stablecoin. That's under his project. And yeah, like, what you're saying, sometimes it's not the best. It's not the cheapest. I want to say not the cheapest, but sometimes it's not the best take that wins. What I've noticed, especially in the grounds of Africa, and what I've seen, like when it comes to adoption and like has transactions here in Africa, is often a lot of the projects that are succeeding here, they're succeeding because they sometimes have some shady thing going on. And what I mean by that is when a lot of adoption started kicking in Africa, there were one of the biggest scams that ever happened. There was MMM, there was this thing called berry trading, but MMM was one of the biggest ones. And what happened was a lot of these vendors. So there are a lot of people who don't understand what Bitcoin is, don't understand what stablecoin is, but because a lot of these Ponzi scheme offer incentives if they make deposits with USDT, for example, a lot of the users who want to get into these Ponzi schemes are like highly incentivized to adopt these especially like USDT, to adopt these to transact in these stable coins, and then you just see this explosion in adoption rate for specifically the stable coin. Sometimes it's not even just like a shady like Ponzi scheme, but even when it comes to exchanges, for example, especially in South Africa, what I noticed was anytime the Bitcoin transaction just went up slightly up, maybe by 20%, on a hard wallet, you would find transaction fee goes up by maybe 15 to 10%. But on exchange, to transact on Bitcoin, you see like a fee of like 90 or 100%. So users will be extremely decentralized to move funds or transact in Bitcoin or anything built on Bitcoin. But they'll be highly incentivized to use the stablecoin that is connected. I mean, like the Binance stablecoin on Binance, for example. I forgot which stablecoin they have there.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, it's been these specific tricks that they kind of play with us.
It is interesting the parallels and preferences of decentralization. As Gabe mentioned, all of the Rootstock co-founders are from Argentina, and their whole thesis behind creating Rootstock was this idea of hyperinflation and that they had to escape it, and that's how they went to Bitcoin, and then realized the transaction fees wouldn't scale. As you mentioned, right? In Africa, it's this very similar kind of situation where you're leading into the crypto space for decentralization because the immense amount of scams that kind of proliferate in the African area. Whereas in America, the Americans are a little bit more leaning towards permissionless than decentralization because there's already a secure country, right? And although the currency is definitely inflating away, it's not to the scale of hyperinflation. Go ahead. Please go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, I mean, to even add on to that, for Africa, one of the biggest things, because you would think that one of the biggest things that will push us towards Bitcoin is decentralization and the fact that it's a monetary system that no one controls. But, hyperinflation mostly just pushes people to a slightly harder currency, such as the US dollar. But the thing that really drives adoptions, often what I found, is trade neutrality. The fact that no one knows because Bitcoin is pseudonymous. And what happened was, even when Bitcoin was banned, because in Zimbabwe we were banned, we were actually leading in adoption, and then all of a sudden our country is like, okay, we see what you guys are doing, let's ban all exchanges, and they put an implicit ban.
Hey, what country was that in?
In Zimbabwe.
Oh, in Zimbabwe.
So yeah. So we now have an implicit ban, but the reason why they put them, it's not even just an implicit ban. In fact, if you're caught converting the local currency to a foreign currency, you can be in prison for 3 years. So there's jail time for these conversions, but it's mostly US dollars to our local currency. Anyway, the problem that we often face, which is very challenging and that we need to overcome, and where Bitcoin plays a perfect role, is often we see these bans and saying that you can't access local United States dollars because you'd be in prison for that. And then secondly, you can't send money outside. So if you can't buy, and the other thing is like 90% of our GDP comes from imports. So we're heavily dependent on food aid imports from foreign countries. But when these guys ban like your access to foreign currency, you end up seeing like these empty shops because people can't send money outside of the country in order to buy these goods in order to feed the people. And this is where now people start desperately looking for alternative solutions. And sometimes Bitcoin and Bitcoin stablecoins really play a big role in countries like Zimbabwe.
Wow. Really appreciate your take. Also, Manu, I did send you an invite or speaker request if you'd like to come up. Gabe had a lot of good things to say about money on chain. So if you're available, I would love to hear about it. If not, we'll continue the conversation for a little bit longer. Adam, what's your take so far on the conversation? You mentioned that you just wanted to come in and learn about Rootstock. I previously had used Rootstock in 2021 when Sovereign had launched. But what's your take now going through this entire conversation?
It's so it's just like if Bitcoiners had known the way, the next, whatever 6 years were going to take place, the rise of ordinals, building on Bitcoin. It's like if they had known all that was going to take place, I think they would have heavily leaned into this, and Rootstock would be, the dominant probably player, or Liquid. I mean, I guess it you don't know which way it would have chosen, but it's just so hard to see the future, right? And so it's like what ended up happening was what we see now, this explosion of L2s on Bitcoin, which are, whatever you want to call it, shitcoin based, tokenized, team controls 40% of the supply, all this kind of like stuff that Bitcoiners really, really didn't want has now taken place because the incentives are aligned for those teams to build these L3s or L2s or whatever on top of Bitcoin, because that's the model where they can raise money and have marketing and hire dev teams and build all this sort of stuff. And it's really, it's a shame, in the same way that we say, like, it was a shame they didn't lean into Counterparty at the time, right? As an asset layer on top of Bitcoin. It's a shame that was kind of lost at the time. And though I'm pulling for Rootstock, like I understand the way people and incentives work, and Rootstock has a really, really tough challenge ahead of it, because clearly the market shows that, the best tech, the most solid foundation, completely tied to Bitcoin doesn't necessarily matter or won't necessarily win long term, because builders go where incentives align for them, meaning they're going to make money doing something else. And it might be an L2 that might not have the best tech or might not be the most aligned with Bitcoin incentives, just because it gives them the opportunity to get rich, right? I mean, to be completely blunt. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this shakes out. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, that most of these L2s are going to fail. I have zero question about that. Rootstock probably has a really good chance of standing at the end, but will it be a significant, holder of assets in the future of Bitcoin is still to be determined, I think.
Right. It is interesting, as Gabe said, that Rootstock's planning for the future long term. I mean, they came out with their white paper 8 years ago, and they hit mainnet 3 years after that. They're not in it for, right, they're not going to do the pumpamentals, Ponzi-nomics that you see. It's kind of similar to OpenSea's strategy versus Blur. They're just like, I'm just going to let the Ponzi-nomics implode on itself, which has started to happen already, right? So Rootstock's kind of in a similar position where even Gabe said he's not going to participate in just pumping tokens. They're here for the long run. But we do have a guest on stage, Manu, who is one of the, I believe, co-founders of Money on Chain. Gabe had a lot of positive things to say about you and pointed Money on Chain as the premier application on Rootstock. So thanks for joining us.
I was going to say one thing, that this is the first ever Bitcoin DeFi on Rootstock. So a lot of love for Manu and Money on Chain for what they've built out.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all these kind words. And first thing, don't trust verify. Don't trust anything. Money on Chain is just a protocol. I'm one of the co-founders, and the right people is the ones who built this. There's many co-founders. Maybe I'm one of the most well-known, but the team is big. And regarding, I just wanted to say something that maybe a lot of people that when it comes to Rootstock or discovers the Money on Chain, because still, even if we are more than 4 years old, running and the protocol is really working perfectly since we launched. We are not very well known, so it's great that to have these spaces. Every time that I can share about it, it's great. But the thing is, just you were mentioning, one of the guests were mentioning that sometimes, and most times, people goes behind the money, and the easiest thing to use and the user experience and all that. And if we go for and if we are thinking about stable coins and DeFi, decentralized finance, obviously, and not decentralized finance in general, it's going to be much easier to use as a US dollar in a bank account in Chase Manhattan Bank or BOFA or whatever. Especially if you live in Europe or if you live in United States, you don't have that problem. But this being thought for countries as Alex was talking about, like Zimbabwe, like Argentina, where we can't. In Argentina, I cannot open a bank account in US dollar and use it as I want. And in most of the countries in the world happens that. And right now, the dollar, the crypto dollar that is used is the USDT. Up to now, in Argentina, you can use it, but maybe tomorrow you are not going to be able. Why? Because whatever. Most probably, U.S. government says you cannot use this in this country. And for example, and it was very recently, Paolo said, well, maybe in Venezuela, we are going to block to a lot of people in Venezuela. And that can happen tomorrow. So the main idea behind Rootstock and Manion Chain is to build a Bitcoiner censorship-resistant solution. Why is important Bitcoin? Because it's decentralized and because it's censorship-resistant. It's the main reason why it's important. And why is important Manion Chain and Rootstock in general, what you build on top of Rootstock, is because you are building on Bitcoin, and if you are using only Bitcoin and you are using a censorship-resistant sidechain, you can build censorship-resistant solution. If not, you can't. It's just, and who is interested to use this kind of solution? People who is interested to use censorship-resistant solutions. For example, now I'm on vacation. Now I'm in United States. I cannot use wallet of Satoshi in United States, and I cannot use a lot of the protocols have themselves try to censorship themselves just for protection from the U.S. government because they think it's dangerous for anybody. Actually, in my own chain, the web app that is, we cannot censor the protocol. The protocol is accessible for anyone in the earth. But the front end that we host, there is an organization that hosts one of the front ends, that is censorship in US because we cannot, we don't want to go to jail at the end, if you want to summarize. But there is the protocol you can access the protocol, which is decentralized, and you can access in many other ways. And the same thing in Rootstock in general. Rootstock, the most important thing about Rootstock is that it's censorship resistant. All the other chains, some are more degrees and other are less degrees. But if you want to use Bitcoin for DeFi in a censorship resistant way, I think the best place to go to build is to build on Rootstock right now. It's the most secure and the most trust-minimized solution for building on top of Rootstock or Bitcoin. Sorry.
Wow. Yeah, really appreciate those takes. As I'm looking through the website and the application, I don't know if I've seen any stablecoin type protocol have multiple or a variety of stablecoins. It's really, really interesting. One final question here. How hard was it to build roots or to build money on chain? I mean, you know, stable coins have been around since 2013, 2014 when Tether first issued on Mastercoin. Now we've seen this evolution of stable coins of all varieties, from algorithmic stable coins, right, to gold-backed stable coins, to stable coins here on money on chain. How do you go about deciding what's the right type of stable coin to issue here?
Well, the financial model is quite simple, but it's an idea of two of my partners mainly. And it's a over collateralized stablecoin, heavily. Now it's like $20 in Bitcoin for each dollar minted, or even more. The minimum required by the system is 4. So it's a super over collateralized stablecoin. The model is unique. It's something that we invented. It didn't exist. And you know, I would say that 99% of the stablecoins are centralized and fiat or real world asset backed stablecoins like Tether and all the other ones. And the rest is mainly the only protocol that now survives that has a little bit of TVL is Liquidity. And then there is a fork of Liquidity, which is running on Rootstock, which is called Zero. But Liquidity has a model.
Oh, did he rug?
Sorry.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Yes. Yeah. Someone calling me. It's over collateralized, but it's not so much over collateralized. So the risk with Liquidity and with Zero is that if you have you will have you might have the same problem that MakerDAO had. So really, the main thing, if you want to build on top of crypto, I prefer Bitcoin because it's the less volatile asset to use as collateral. If you are choosing a crypto collateral, you need to be sure that what you are building is really, really robust to support a big crash that normally happens in this. And if you are using a model like Tether or other ones, the main risk that you have is what can happen with what has happened, for example, with USDC that crashed because they had part of the deposits in a bank and the bank collapsed. And that could happen tomorrow with any centralized solution. So in the case of the centralized models, you need to trust someone. And the main idea behind money on chain and Rootstock in general is trying, in Bitcoin in general, is trying not to trust someone. If not, use a bank if you can. And in our case, the main objective is trying to build the most trust minimized stablecoin in the world, which is very, very robust. So in the case of a Bitcoin crash or whatever other collateral that we use in the future, right now we have the main stablecoin is using Rootstock. We had another deployment using another crypto asset. But the main idea is to have something very, very robust on which you can build, other will be building finance. Because if you think in a whole in the ecosystem, stablecoins are like, is what you call a really primitive. On top of that, you are going to build, I don't know, in Ethereum, you have Compound, in Rootstock, you have Tropicus, Sovereign, other lending protocols. You can have AMMs, exchanges, whatever. If the stablecoin of that ecosystem crashes, all the ecosystem crashes. So it's very important to have a very, very robust stablecoin on what you are building on. Yes, and regarding how hard it was very hard, and it is very hard even today. It's not that this is well. Today, this is running, and this is the organization behind is working. It has enough funds to support the development and making awareness about this. But even if this organization disappears, the protocol will work by itself. So because there is some economic incentive for the governance token, and with the TVL that we have, that the protocol has, is like the economics are sound for surviving. Even having only, it's like $100 million. The TVL is really small if you think in the DeFi market, but it's enough for this protocol to survive and hopefully to grow.
Yep, I'm assuming it'll grow as Rootstock does. That tends to be how the applications work, is that they scale alongside the underlying protocol, and usually happens a little bit afterwards. But Manu, I do appreciate you for coming on. We're gonna wrap up the space here. So it's a really awesome Rootstock space. We had one of the co-founders here. You know, a lot of key members, builders on stage as well. So I appreciate you, Manu, Alexander, Handel, and then Gabe, who's not on the stage anymore. Appreciate you guys for coming on. For those that are new to our show, Adam, Chris, and I, we work at Emblem Vault, the leading cross-chain NFT protocol in the crypto industry. We have over 100 million in TVL, majority of those being Bitcoin NFTs. I do think we're going to have to talk with Gabe to get Emblem on Rootstock so we could bring all assets over to Emblem. And then Handel, maybe we have to have a conversation as well, because we have a very similar vision in terms of connecting everything together. Also appreciate you for being an early Emblem user for Namecoin assets.
For sure. Definitely looking forward to speaking further.
Yeah, just shoot us a DM. We'll have a conversation. Everyone that's here, please follow the Emblem account. You can so you can stay up to date with everything that we're doing with Emblem. We just launched a cross-chain marketplace. We have a new minting interface coming out as well, and then we'll be deploying on a lot of protocols here over the remainder of the year. We host a show Tuesday through Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, where we feature guests and conversations like this from the Bitcoin ecosystem and the larger community. We'll be back here at Tuesday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. I know Adam's going to be down at Bitcoin Nashville, so maybe go find Adam so you can be on his list of 400 people that's reached out to him as well. But we will host this next week. I'll be leading the spaces next week while Adam is down in Nashville. Appreciate everyone. Yeah, please give the Emblem account a follow, or everyone here reach out to us. We're always down for a conversation, and we'll see you back here next time, Tuesday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, guys, be safe. Have a good one out there, and we'll see you soon.